my lovelies. So it's been a really, really exciting weekend. I hope everybody had a good weekend, however you spent it. Our 116th Congressional Coalition group is starting to grow exponentially, and I couldn't be happier. I wanted to address some of the people locally. Okay? We all know that toward the beginning of the year, we had a breakdown in our campaign. There was a lot of confusion, a lot of miscommunications going on among members who weren't taking advantage of the entire organization, the campaign committee, as it was meant. And that was my fault, because I tried to foster an atmosphere in the campaign of free thinking and free action. Well, that's not what a leader does. That's not a consensus in certain aspects of life works. But just like a family, it isn't a democracy, right? In a family, the parents are benevolent dictators. You don't let your children vote you out. We just don't do that. It's like, no, excuse me, sorry, these are the rules. We make them, and when you grow up and start making your own rules that work differently in your own house, then that's a different story. But I failed the campaign by not leading them into fitting in where they were most productive. And so what happens is people get distracted, they get lost, they don't know what's going on, and we let things pile up. Now, that's not to say that it wasn't a very valuable experience, because it exposed some individuals that, for who they are, that really do not exhibit the kind of core. I mean, it's one thing, you can go get involved in things and you can, be a socialite and be involved in groups and say, I'm involved with this and I'm involved with that. But if your core values don't represent what those groups represent, then I don't really care. There is probably just a couple people that I probably would never be able to welcome back into a capacity of being a campaign staff or volunteer. You wouldn't be able to be in the campaign. Now, you can support the campaign. We may be able to work on our relationship, and you may be able to prove to me that you're not the horrendous scumbag that you portrayed yourself in the actions you took. But I'm not going to put up with that kind of behavior from anybody, especially somebody who is walking around in the progressive movement and touting themselves as a progressive, but are engaging in really nasty kind of thievery and sabotage and disloyalty, betrayal. Those are qualities, core qualities, that have nothing to do with the progressive movement, right? So if you're engaging in those qualities, extracting information to hold it later just in case you want to use it against the person, that's not a trustworthy relationship. So you don't have a place in my campaign knowing that's who you are. And you know who I'm talking about. Everybody does. But there's other people that made mistakes, that maybe communicated poorly, maybe engaged in conversations outside of the campaign about the campaign rather than talking about issues about the campaign within the campaign so that we could root out the problems. Maybe people were focused on some of the personal issues going on in my life and using those as a gauge to say, you're being irresponsible because you're sending your fiance $200 a week to take care of your family in the Philippines, at the same time trying to take care of your family here, my son and myself in Rochester, at the same time trying to run a business that I'm dealing with a developer who is not being cooperative, and our bottom line is not rising, so I'm not making any money, while I'm out working for a local farmer pumping manure, and my campaign staff wants to criticize me instead of picking up the slack. So on some levels, I'm glad it all happened because it taught me that, first of all, I wasn't taking the leadership role responsibly. Just letting people kind of put their face up on the website and say, hey, you know, I support Johnny, but not really doing anything. Having these arbitrary titles and maybe once in a while sharing something on Facebook. That is not a campaign volunteer. That is not a supporter. Or, well, that's a supporter. Let's put it that way. That's not a campaign volunteer or a staffer. Okay? And everybody knows that our staff is non-paid because we have no money. If we ever get any money, then any monies that are above and beyond anything like buying literature, travel cost, venue rentals, any extended funds that we don't use in any agreed upon marketing, like, you know, social marketing, social media marketing, things like that is fine. I don't plan on doing any TV commercials unless we have the funds and the committee says, you know what, let's do one commercial. Let's put a good video out and give it to the local news. Maybe we'll do that. But I'm not interested. First of all, I'm not interested in paying people $60,000 to help do what they should be doing for free. Okay? I'm starving to death and keeping this campaign going because I can't give up on it. I just can't. If Dan Feehan gets the endorsement, he is Washington all the way. He's a good little soldier boy. He will not fight for what we need, and each and every one of you out there knows it, except for the few little people in the Democratic Party who want to pretend that politics just needs to keep going on as it's going on. Okay? Well, we all know different. Now, before the campaign, or at the time that the campaign was going through this breakdown and restructuring in the new year, I made two direct approaches and started consolidating some efforts. I was willing to give my support behind one of my opponents. I was actually gathering support from other former candidates and being willing to use a press release that I had already had planned to give my full endorsement, public endorsement, the whole 9 yards. That guy couldn't get back to me. Well, you know, it wasn't Vicky because I said a guy. Which I do love Vicky, by the way. She's just a little bit centrist, and I think she's more suited for Minnesota State. I don't believe, you know, but I don't want to get into that because I do like Vicky. But I was willing to give my support to somebody who's a touting progressive, and the guy would not return my phone call. He would not return my text messages. He would not get back to me. I actually had to practically hunt him down at a public event in town. We live in the same town. Now, what does that tell me about his leadership or decision-making abilities? Which, by the way, he never made a decision even after I confronted him and said, listen, I'm willing to give you all this support. I'm in dire straits right now. This campaign was more than I could take on. I need a staff position. I know you've got funds. I'll come work for you, and I want to go to Washington with you, because the way I look at it is if I'm going to give you all of my support, I want to stand there next to you making sure that I can keep you accountable so that I don't have to wait for those phone calls or missed emails. And I never got a response, not once. And he knew that I was in dire straits because I gave him my whole personal aspect. So to me, that tells me he doesn't care enough. He cannot represent me if he can't even call me back. You failed, and you know you failed. That's why I'm still in this race. I'm not here to knock down Dan for somebody else to win. That is not my job. I am here to represent the needs of this district once and for all. Tim Walz has failed us. I will not. I am bringing back the passion of Paul Wellstone to Minnesota. He is, yeah, okay, somebody said it the other day. He's your hero. Well, maybe you can take that a little stretch, but he is definitely an inspiration of mine. I thought he's what sold Minnesota on me. I may not have been born here, but when I was old enough, I was smart enough to stay here. What does that tell you about how I feel about this place? It means that I love it. I raised my son here. And we're going to let some guy who's been screwing around in Milwaukee and Indiana and D.C. come in here after 20 years and say, hey guys, I know how to represent you because I learned how to policy. Baloney. And I'm being nice because I'm angry about it. And I will stand up against it. I will not let this happen. And neither will any of you. You will not let it happen either because you know it's wrong. And I'm here to represent that. You know what we need in Minnesota? Do you know what we need in this district? We need a guaranteed, federal guaranteed jobs program. Why? I've explained it in some of my videos. I will keep explaining it because I understand the program. It works on a local level. We immediately start fixing things. I'm calling out some of my friends. Regina Mustafa, who's running for mayor now in Rochester, she knows all this stuff. She wants to see Rochester flourish. My friends at CURE, Communities United for Rochester Empowerment, instead of fighting for affordable housing and internal segregation, which we know is not the answer, help us fight for a guaranteed jobs program which will lift all of those people in the community out of poverty once and for all. That is our message. It's being worked on. I guarantee there's going to be a bill in the Senate, probably led by a friend of ours that we know, Mr. Sanders, before I get elected in November. But we're working on the proposal right now. The report's coming out. We're going to convince people in Congress that this is the answer right now to 90% of our sociological problems. I saw one of our local leaders, Mal Landis, talking about some kind of loan he may have gotten approved for, and he wanted to do some things, and it's community things. These people, they're taking their own money and they're leading community action. We need to stop it. And none of the other candidates know what the federal jobs guarantee is. None of my opponents know. None of them even know how to pay for it. They think we need to go tax people in order to pay for a program. They're wrong. This is not their household budget we're talking about. This is the federal government that issues currency. We are going to change the thinking of the people in this district and across the nation to realize that the lies that they have been telling us for decades are going to end in the 116th Congress. That's it. They're ending because we have an entire coalition of people, some of which are really like they're almost shoo-ins. And we're starting to work together to consolidate our message. We're not droning, okay, not, oh, this is going to be another nonprofit. That's not what our group is about. Our group is about getting to know each other as if we're at work in the Capitol. Hey, what's going on, Angelica? How you doing? How's that working out for you? Yeah, we know each other already. I've talked to a dozen different candidates from all over the United States so far to work on our personal endorsements. I'm not going to endorse anybody if I don't feel you're on board. Now, what does that do? Well, what are you doing for your local area? Well, listen, I'm running for federal office. I need to get to know the people I'll be working with. Some of those are running as incumbents, like Tulsi Gabbard. She's invited. She can come in, help us with some resources that she may know about, that candidates should know about. But we're not leaving our message behind. Okay? The federal jobs guarantee works in conjunction with Medicare for All, and it ends poverty and unemployment as we know it. Now, we can talk about the details some other time. This video was meant to reach back out to some of you who you just followed the leader. Just because a couple people dropped off and there was these Facebook private chats. That's where you guys talk to make your decisions. That's not how you run a campaign like that. If you want to make decisions to stay or go, you come to me, let's talk about it. Let's see what this is all about. Where is it going? Why is it failing? Because that's how we come up with solutions. So I'm putting this out here to all of you, and I'm not going to call you all out on this video because you know who you are. Some of you were the ones that encouraged me to run. And you bailed just because, in your words, everyone else is leaving. What is that? You don't know why. You don't know. You stand up for what you believe in. Do you believe in these things that we're fighting for? Then you need to believe in the candidates that believe in them and are willing to fight for them. And that aren't going to take the party's domination to Washington. The party can kiss my ass. I'm going to do what's right for the people. And our coalition consists of Republicans, Independents, Greens, and Democrats. Of all affiliations, Our Revolution, Justice Democrats, Brand New Congress, DSA, SA, you name it. They've gotten endorsements from them all. And you know what? They leave those buttons at the door when we walk in. No more aisle in Washington. These are people I can't wait to serve with. I don't care what party they're in. I don't care. They have the message that the people need, that we have to work together to get passed in Washington. They're on my side. And the rest of us need to think about it the same way. So if you want to come back and you want to actually win this seat, because I'll tell you what, Dan Feehan, you're going back to Washington on August 15th if you don't decide to go back sooner. Because we're not going to risk this seat to a Washington insider that the GOP is salivating to expose. I don't even want to support you. You think that these people are going to come, they're going to let you get away with $2,700 max donations, walking into this place after 20 years, you start making the party rounds before you can even announce, because you have to live in the district 30 days before you can announce, and you think that's representative of the problems here? No, I won't have it. And I won't have you jeopardizing Minnesota and this district just because you learned how to policy. We need less Washington and we need more people. And that's where we're headed. And I'm telling you, this message is not ending. I'm inviting the people back that left, but that doesn't mean we have no one. we have quite a few. We're just not pulling the same facade game. Remember before it was like, you got to be on the website. I want your picture profile up there. But you weren't doing anything, people. You were hardly even sharing social media. So it was a facade. So I took that down. The only member's me as far as who is on the website right now. We may change that. It's up to the committee. But right now we're working on endorsements from other candidates who are in the running, maybe even incumbents eventually who we support. Like I said, Tulsi Gabbard. Bernie Sanders is in Congress. He's welcome to our 116th congressional candidate coalition group on Facebook if he'd like to come in and give us any pointers or let us know how the federal jobs guarantee bill proposal is coming along, because it's the Sanders Institute and the Levy Institute that's working on it. And once that report comes out, we're going to have some guidelines based on factual evidence of where this has worked and how it can work in the United States to start drafting up a proposal. And that, again, why is it so important? Why am I pushing it? Not just to get elected, because it is exactly what we need. 90% of local issues will be solved in this one bill alone. You don't believe me? Debate me about it. And we'll go, because I'll knock down just about every single thing we got in our economic, socioeconomic issues. You know, we've got programs with people who are volunteering for 5 and 6 different programs, working 2 jobs and taking care of a family. Why? We just create a program and start staffing it up with people from the jobs program, and we start fixing our local problems. This is the answer to our 21st century problems, and this is the Congress that's going to be leading it. I'm part of that Congress. So if you want to be part of a winning team, a winning message, even though that doesn't matter, it's not about the winning, right? It is, but you know, that saying Paul Wellstone says, again, my bud, Paul, says, politics is not just about winning for the sake of winning. So we get a D by our name over here in the district, but we get another Tim Walz or worse in Dan Feehan? No. I've talked to the guy. He does not get it. He still wants to support the Affordable Care Act. He does not get a lot of things. And he certainly doesn't get this district. So, look, I gave people an opportunity so I could still be in the game and work with them. And they kicked me in the teeth for the most part. So what does that mean? It means obviously they want the battle to still go on. They're not willing to work with me to enact change, so they want to work against me to block it. We can't let that happen. You guys know we can't let that happen. Have I said anything this whole time about Bernie's platform or Hillary this or Trump that? No. That message doesn't matter. What matters is this jobs program, Medicare for all, ending the prohibition on marijuana, which will lead to a lot of other socioeconomic advancements. Those are 3 things we can do within the first year. Marijuana, we can do that one in the first week. It's got bipartisan support. Everybody, 75% of the United States supports letting states decide. Come on. If we don't get that done in the first round of what's on the floor at Congress, then we're already failing. And here's another thing to mention as far as the timeline. We've got a lot of these candidates are CFAR candidates. Some of you on my campaign before thought that these pledges and these contracts are gimmicky, and they're not. What they're showing people is it's like an employment contract that says you got 180 days of a probationary period, and then we're gonna let you know whether we think what you're doing, because if you don't do these things you're supposed to be standing up for. And some of the things, to be honest with you, on the contract, that don't get all confused, but we stand for $15 minimum wage. Well, that's still something that doesn't go far enough. Those are the minimums. That doesn't mean what we're going to ask for. I'll go up there and ask for $25 an hour because we know how they haggle us down. However, with the federal jobs program, that might have some offsetting, because why do we have to raise a minimum wage? Because people don't want to work at the job they're working at Walmart. Then they just walk into the employment office and say, I have an underpaying job. What kind of training do you have? Not really any. Well, let's first get you started in the retraining program. And that's where we go with it. So it's not like this is brain surgery. This is people surgery. Okay? Tim Kernova announced today he's dropping out of the party primary and running as an independent against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. He's got guts. Everybody wants to, oh, Tim, he's so great. But then when other people are doing it in your area, it's like, oh, you can't do that here in Minnesota nice. No, wrong. The party is not Minnesota nice. The party is stealing democracy away. It's already started doing it. No more. And I have a few little tricks up my sleeve about some recruiting possibilities that I don't want to indulge in at this particular time. But it's quite possible that after I solidify some discussions with some other people, that there's absolutely nothing they can do to stop our campaign. So I want you guys to think about, you still involved? What's more important, an organization or the actual candidates that those organizations were meant to promote? That's what lost me with our revolution in Minnesota, you guys. You started getting indulged in the organization process so much that not only did you screw it up, because you allowed it to be taken over by people from districts they didn't belong and cast votes that had nothing to do with their say. And it would have been an easy technological thing because our Voice USA has an app that you just got to download the app. They could have done it. So they just weren't qualified enough to do it. So they pushed something that was a total botch job, and it failed to represent what the people really were probably feeling, and it became a DNC light. And what are you guys really doing to endorse people? I mean, to help candidates other than putting in our revolution by their name now? I mean, people have lost faith in the organization because you were too busy worried about the processes of the organization to listen to the people. That's what happens in the parties. So, stop with the organizational identity politics, and let's get back to the candidates that are talking about the things that are going to fix our problems, because that's all we need to do. And we're doing it. We're already working together. We would expect that the supporters and campaign members, campaign supporters of those people to break down those barriers and be accepting of this as well. Just take off those buttons, man. Just take them off. We don't need them. We don't need to identify ourselves in a way that separates us from others. And you think about that. And if you want to contact me, all of you folks know how to contact me. And we'll discuss whether you want to be a tertiary supporter, where you're just kind of saying, hey, I support Johnny, and maybe sharing things online, or whether you actually want to be a volunteer, or whether you want to actually get involved and take a staff position. And by the way, anybody that is on my campaign helping us win this race are going to be first in line to have staff positions both here at home and in Washington. I actually have somebody very, very key in mind for my chief of staff. And it's going to take a little finagling, because you don't just walk up to somebody and they don't, Anyway, I'm leaving that door open to somebody, and no, it's not another candidate. It's somebody from the community. Because I'm not getting any love from any of the other candidates, obviously. So, after August 15th, you can come support me. You can throw your support behind the Republican. I don't know. I mean, if you're going to stick to the endorsement and you're going to put your support behind Dan Feehan, then, you're running your own show there. Because if you want to have a future in politics, you're kind of put back in the wrong pony there. So I'd very seriously consider you to think about on April 22nd who you're going to back, because this race is going to August 14th. And if you ain't in it, you're going to have to back one of us. And you're going to have to sleep at night with the decision you make. So I'm going to let you guys go. We got more stuff to do. I got calls to make. We got all kinds of stuff going on. Get involved. We need something to happen. We need this Jobs Guarantee program, and we need people support to help us with our candidate support. That's it. Talk to you later.